I imagine that must have been.
Yeah, it can be. It can. Welcome everybody to Bother the Father. We're here live at the St. Anne Dining Room. So if there are any questions, we have a smaller crowd tonight. Maybe people are looming with the pending rain. I don't know, but still, we just have one person here, and looks like we have one person online. So the floor is open.
Okay, so unless somebody online has a question, I've got I wrote down all my things that I was thinking of this week.
Great, wonderful, oh, wonderful. Okay, great.
And they're kind of fun.
Good.
They're not real hard.
Okay, good.
Okay,
I don't want that either.
I'm on the internet a lot. And I know you love movies.
Mm-hmm.
You remember when Braveheart was in front? They were going to battle, and the guys were like, "This can't be Braveheart."
Oh yeah, right.
There's a lot of stories about me. Okay, so on the internet, I'm seeing all these stories about Jonathan Roumie and how he has bashed Oprah, and he has won court cases from this and that. Is there maybe a lot of folklore going on about Jonathan Roumie, or do you know anything about that?
No, I mean, I know that, sometimes he's pressed on his Christian background, his Catholic upbringing, his Catholic, faith. From what I've ever seen, he's always kind of handled those things really well. Bashing is kind of an interesting term. I don't think I ever heard him bash anybody.
Oh, no, not bashing. I'm sorry. He was being bashed.
Being bashed. Okay.
Being bashed,
okay.
But...
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think sometimes he's in rather... he goes on these circuits to promote certain things, especially when it comes to The Chosen, or if he's in a movie or something like that. And I think oftentimes, because he's such a centralized figure and he's such a known Christian and Catholic, a lot of people tend to press him on that. And, right, wrong, or indifferent, I don't know if that's necessarily fair or not, but I think he does handle it very, very well. I don't think he's really unabashed in the fact that at least he does, believe in what the church teaches, believes in his faith. And I think he's a very great example of showing that.
Yeah.
Yeah. But as far as so
there was this one, I watched this thing, it was like 45 minutes. The story went to where there's this company, and I looked the company up on the internet, and there's a company like this name.
Mm-hmm.
So he has this acting method that he came up with, and he went through and he developed for making The Chosen.
Mm-hmm.
And this other company that was basically printing out material of faith-based material.
Okay.
This lady came in and they wanted to start their own acting company, and they stole all his secrets. And in a courtroom, he had to defend it, and by himself. And it seemed rather large.
Oh, I haven't heard any of this. So, I mean, this is all news to me. I mean, I don't know. I have to admit, I don't necessarily when it comes online, if this comes on my feed, I don't really know what's going on. I have to admit that. But I haven't heard anything about this. So this is all kind of news to me.
Okay. Yeah. I was looking up stuff like the Miracle Hunter and Jimmy Akin.
Yeah.
This came up too. He did.
Okay, yeah. I mean, it was on what was YouTube. What was the channel it was up on? Was it like a independent person? Was it like a news? Was it like EWTN or?
It was not EWTN.
Do you know,
it was an independent kind of news story bulletin.
Yeah, I mean,
and I think it took a lot of company names and switched them around and made the story larger than
interesting. I mean, let me just do a quick, maybe Google-ish. Our Lady Google, pray for us. See what happens here. Let's see.
Defending acting methods, or having his acting methods being stolen. Yeah, so these people came in, they were taking pictures of kind of the things that he was.
Let's see. His actual life.
Self-litigated.
Interesting. His acting methods litigation. Let me see if anything comes up there. I mean, according to AI, it says there is no public litigation or legal dispute involving Jonathan Roumie and his acting methods.
So I don't think it was true.
So I don't know.
Literally, because I was watching the whole thing, and as it kept it going, I thought,
Yeah, I mean,
And
I'm
then
just scrolling through here with the Google. I don't see anything on here in particular. So
So you and I together found out that Jonathan Rumi suffers from William Wallace disease, where there's lots of stories about
yeah,
him,
yeah,
and they were good. It made
Yeah.
him looking good. It made
sure.
him
Oh
in a
yeah,
good
yeah, yeah,
light.
yeah. Well, you know, it's like kind of goes back to the whole like I remember last year when Pope Leo was elected. There was, and again, this goes maybe goes to show also how AI can be so devious in some ways because there was a channel that came up almost like immediately, like maybe a few days after he was elected, all about Pope Leo and what he talks about. And there was like, he was just elected a couple days. So it was kind of like, what's going on? Yeah, exactly. It's like, what's going on here? And it was all AI. And I mean, again, the same way, it was like all like not bad stuff. It was all real, good from what I was seeing, but it was also just like, you definitely could tell it was AI. And it was like, okay, but he just became Pope. There's no way he could have said these things. So it was very yeah, you gotta be careful out there, I think, with a lot of these things. And that's why I think AI makes it even so much more difficult to discern this because it can be rather realistic. It can seem like, oh wow, that's plausible. That's very plausible. And so unless you do your own research, yeah, you could probably go down that rabbit hole pretty quickly.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, there's other. I mean, and that's not just. I mean, there's a lot, and even like the non-AI. There's, there are certain even Catholic influencers and podcasters out there that maybe don't do Catholic content, but at least Catholic, practicing their faith. And there's a few come to mind where like conspiracies come up, and again, I think sometimes it's good to take as entertainment value and say, "Wow, this is kind of entertaining." I may not necessarily put credence in this, but if you do, it's always best to kind of do your own research and figure out, okay, what is fact and what is fiction, what is an opinion, what is an inference, and what actually is there.
And be very careful of just the very first little thing.
Oh, for sure,
right?
For sure.
I know one of the things that has when you first came here, folks were talking about what a stickler you are. Maybe not stickler, but how you respected the rules and stayed within the rules.
Sure, right.
You weren't going to wing anything.
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
And that's kind of where
which is kind of funny because I understand like my predecessor, not my direct predecessor, maybe with my one of my predecessors where I got here. He had a reputation of also being rather orthodox. And so I don't know. I think again, there's a limitation of orthodoxy. I think what a lot of people find in my cell when it comes to liturgy, yeah, I'm a rubric guy. I do the red, say the black, right? I don't deviate much from that. I would hope that even my teaching and preaching are also all orthodox. I'm not like reinventing anything here. You can find everything I talk about in scripture, in tradition, by the church fathers, because I research it. I actually put time and effort into actually reviewing the scripture, praying with the scripture, and actually learning about it, and even learning what theologians say about it. Which is kind of funny because I think also some might tell you, like when it comes to my administration, I'm kind of a pushover. I think if you ask some of my staff, they'll say like, yeah, he's pretty amicable for us. I'm like, he'll kind of let us do whatever we want to do. And part of that is like, I always take the approach from my background was, when I was, had another job, was if I had time to take off, you take off. You want to give obviously notice. And the rule of thumb in our office was, you give as much notice as the time you're taking off. So if I'm taking a week, I give a week notice. So if I'm taking a month, I give a week. And I think as long as you follow that policy, yeah, okay, fine. The other thing that kind of instilled in me was that it became very aware I was replaceable. I'm not like, it's not like, I need to be here. And I'm if I were to go, everything would fall apart. And I think the same goes for really anyone who comes. It's like, yeah, no, we appreciate people here. We appreciate the work that people do. We appreciate the time and effort, and we also pay them for that. But also, yeah, if you have to go for a day, and maybe that means the office closes, I think we're going to still be okay when you get back. Things are still going to move forward, right? Yeah, I think that's kind of it's funny to hear people kind of critiques of that. What's also interesting, I think sometimes that not often do they actually critique you to your face. when it comes to these things too.
When I heard that critique, it was meant in a good way.
Well, good. I mean,
It was very, and
yeah.
a thankful way.
Oh, okay, fair enough. All right, good. All right, I'll take that. I'll take that. Well, because that could also be other sides. Like sometimes when you say like he's very orthodox, or he's very, he follows the rules. Sometimes people critique that as being rigid.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too. I don't.
You don't make these rules
exactly
up. You're
right.
Just,
right. But I mean, also I think sometimes like people just don't understand them. Like for instance, right now, a lot of people are asking about Father Vincent, and they're asking also like, why can't he celebrate Mass? Why can't he, hear confessions? And for those who don't know, we have a priest that's been living here for a few years, named from Uganda. His name is Father Vincent. Has been a really great help over the last couple of years when he was trying to get his degree, but he's been serving here at St. Anne. Of course, he got his degree, and his student visa ran out, and now he's trying to get a work visa, and it's up to his bishop where he goes at that point. But things are kind of ambiguous right now. And for those who maybe don't know, when a priest goes to a different area, even if they're serving their own area, right? So we maybe talked about this before, but for me to celebrate Mass, hear confessions here in the Archdiocese of St. Louis, I can't do that separate from a bishop, right? So in other words, my bishop, the Archbishop of St. Louis, Archbishop Brzezinski, gives me, Father Men, faculties, right? So the fact I'm ordained gives me the potential, the character, some may say the vessel, to actually do these things. But to actually do those things and put it in actuality, the bishop has to allow me to. And not only allow me, but grant me that authority, right? In the same way Jesus sent out his disciples, right, to go and heal and preach and drive out demons, that was coming from Jesus, not from the people that were going out, right? So in the same way, this authority is coming from, the head of our diocese, right? The shepherd, the bishop, the archbishop, who represents Christ, right, in its fullness. So whenever I would leave then the diocese, and that's, a granting that is really kind of, it's a permanent granting, provided there's nothing that's done that would negate morally an abuse of those authority, right? So in other words, if I were to violate canon law in some way, the bishop has every right to take those faculties away from me. Still a priest, still have the character, but I couldn't publicly hear masses and confessions and all that kind of stuff. So if I were to leave the diocese, though, the jurisdiction of the archbishop is just the St. Louis Archdiocese. So if I go to, let's say, Jeff City, and let's say I want to go there and celebrate Mass and hear confessions, maybe I'm there on vacation, or maybe I go to Belleville, or maybe I go to the Holy Land, or go on the Camino. If I do any type of ministry there that's priestly ministry, meaning hearing confessions, baptizing, preaching, anointing of the sick, confessions, confirmations, I have to get that particular bishop's permission and authority and grant my faculties to do it. And what the law dictates is that is not considered to be a permanent granting of faculties. That's a temporary based on the time that the priest is in that jurisdiction. And so in order to grant that particular bishop needs to know how long is going to last, right? So you're coming to my diocese for what, 2 days? Okay, where are you going to be? I'm going to be at this church and this church. Okay, we'll notify the pastor there. As long as you have a letter of good standing from your bishop, we'll grant you the faculties. And so, as you can imagine, there's not a lot of kind of off the cuff or just instantaneous, oh, I want to stay a few more days. Okay, you could, but you couldn't do anything without going back to the bishop. Yeah, as a priest, go back. You're right.
You're fine.
Yeah. So you imagine when you go on vacation as a priest, or go even on a retreat, or like we went to the Camino last year, you had to plan ahead. You had to figure, okay, where am I going to be? What church are we going to be at? Okay, what diocese is that? Okay, I'm going to have to send my letter of good standing from my bishop to them, and then they're going to send me back a card or a notification that I have now faculties. And I had to bring that around with me everywhere that I went, and had to show them some places that, oh yeah, I am a validly ordained priest. I am in good standing, and the bishop here has given me faculties. That's the law. And that applies to any priest whenever they go anywhere, whether it be a temporary assignment or even a permanent assignment. So, so with Father Vincent, obviously his time has run out here from what he originally gave us. And because there's so much ambiguity right now, we're not really sure how long he's going to be staying in St. Louis, because There's factors of, well, the visa takes, we don't know how long that's going to take. And then even if he gets his visa, there's no guarantee he's going to stay here. His bishop may want him to go back home or go to another diocese or get some experience somewhere else. That's up to the bishop. And so until we get a date that Father Vincent is leaving here, we can't extend his faculties because you can't just do that intermittently. You have to have a permanent date. So that's where we're at. So maybe that's a little bit of deep dive canon law that maybe you didn't really expect or didn't want to hear, but that applies to every priest. Some people are kind of surprised by that like when I leave this diocese, and where I go, every summer there's a lot of priests who go down to Springfield, Missouri for Steubenville Conference. They have to get permission from Bishop Rice to celebrate the Mass, even though it's sponsored by the Archdiocese of St. Louis. It's in his jurisdiction. He grants the faculties. And as a matter of fact, when it comes to like bishops, for instance, like if let's say Bishop Rice comes here to St. Louis, he has to go through the same process and get permission from the Archbishop Rosansky here to do that. Now, sometimes that's implied or it's like, kind of granted through, informal ways when it comes to bishops. But if he were to come to here in St. Anne, I would have to have a letter of good standing from him. And my bishop has had to notify me that he can celebrate Mass.
For good reason.
Yeah, yeah.
For very good reason.
And I think that's the thing. Like some people think less seems rather oppressive. This seems kind of like, kind of like not as, open or efficient. But the purpose of it is not for the priest, it's for the faithful. Is to ensure that the people that are celebrating Mass for you and hearing your confessions are doing it validly, that they are actually validly ordained priests and not only valid, but also licitly, because the people of God deserve that. It's not directed towards, what a kind of a burden on the priests and the tribe. That's not the point. The point is we want to ensure that the person that celebrates the Mass, wherever it may be, is validly ordained in good standing and will do it right. So it's really for the benefit of the faithful, not for the benefit of the priests. This question here, you mentioned about traveling. How should we handle Sunday Mass? We are traveling. Assume we would be traveling on Sunday. Yeah. Traditionally, if one were traveling, the obligation of attending Mass on Sunday would be omitted or remitted, depending on how you want to put it. The thought being that those that are traveling, well, especially if you go to a place they don't know, they wouldn't know where the church is. They wouldn't know the Mass times. They wouldn't even necessarily how to contact that church to figure out, what was going on. I mean, we were thinking about, the days before even things like, cables, right? Telegraph. You can maybe send letters, but again, I mean, who knows if it's going to get to the place. So the find places was rather difficult unless you knew ahead of time where places were. And even then, it wasn't necessarily like a guarantee. Like if I had a friend that went to Rome and said, or let's say, I don't know, let's say Greece. There's not a lot of Catholic churches in Greece. So, hey, I know there's one Catholic church is there. Oh, okay, so maybe I intend to go there when I get there. Oh, the church is not here anymore. Or at least it's maybe whatever was there. Maybe you messed up. Or maybe, maybe something bad happened in the church. Your obligation would be lifted, right, in that regard. And sometimes people would go to their pastor and say, I'm going traveling. I don't really know where the local Catholic church is. I don't know really, even the time of telephone, I don't really know who to call. Can I be dispensed for my Sunday obligation? And in general, that would be granted because, yeah, that makes sense. There's a reason for this, right? When we're talking about today, where, you can pull your phone open and say, okay, Siri, tell me where the nearest Catholic church is. Well, I mean, maybe to actually find that information isn't as difficult anymore, right? And again, there could be circumstances where, like, it's an outdated list, or the internet was wrong, or the question though is, what effort did you put into it? Did you try? Did you go straight to your pastor and get even today people can come to the pastor and say, hey, I'm going out of town. I'm not really too sure. I don't really trust the internet and the web pages because I've had that experience before and it didn't really work well. Just to make sure that I'm covered, can I be dispensed? Sure. So in general, the question is, well, what effort did you put in? Did you make an effort at all? Right. maybe a better question is, where's the sacrifice, right? So in other words, Mass is a sacrifice. We go there to witness the sacrifice of Christ, and then also bring that with ourselves to sacrifice too. We offer sacrifice in the Mass just as much as the priest does, and in the same sacrifice of Christ. So that may be the reasonable question. Okay, how are you sacrificing here in being dispensed? I tried, I couldn't find it. I know when I was young, we used to go like different places, and we would try to go ahead. And there's sometimes though, hey, it didn't work. The Mass time was wrong, or someone made a mistake, or whatever. We tried to go though, and we didn't. We didn't make it. By law, you'd be dispensed. We didn't have to go to our pastor for that kind of thing, right? We tried. We gave an effort. We sacrificed our time and maybe some gas, right, to find this place. Got there, and hey, the church, the last Mass already happened. We didn't know. We thought there was. You do the best you can. So I think that's shifted a little bit. And oftentimes when we talk about the obligation, there can be reasons, and a faithful can actually dispense themselves based on those reasons. So if it's an issue like, okay, let's take it a step further. I'm not traveling, but boy, my wife and kids are sick. I'm not sick, but I probably need to take care of them, right? Provide their needs, but also I might be sick too. And, even though I feel healthy, should I go to Mass? Could I bring something into the church that, maybe wouldn't be good for the people there? That's a valid reason. I'm getting older. I can't walk so much as well. There may be a great fear of like me hurting myself, or, also, boy, it's raining really bad outside. I might slip. Okay. The circumstances here kind of tend to matter on it. And so there's kind of this line between, we don't want to dispense ourselves too loosely, but we also want to be too rigid in that regard either, because God won't understand these things, right? God understands. So when it comes to traveling, I think that the point is you do the best you can. And like if you're going to someplace in Greece where there aren't many Catholic churches, okay, well, can I go to an Orthodox church? You could and still fulfill your obligation, right? So that's kind of the answer. If you're traveling, you basically do the best you can. I mean, it's a rather unfulfilling answer, but that's kind of what the church teaches in this regard, right? So yeah, with the internet and stuff, I think you can make a harder argument today than you could even 20 years ago for trying to find a Mass, because there's a Mass going on somewhere in the world in every part of the globe at every hour of the day. So yeah, okay, well, I'm heading out to New York or California. There are Catholic churches there. And these days it's relatively easy to find those things. And even if you're not really sure about the internet, you could also call the rectory and be like, hey, I'm just double checking. I saw this online. Is that fine? Is that overkill? I don't know. I mean, can there be overkill? Sure, I think there could be. But I think the fact that people try is really what fulfills the obligation, right?
Yeah, you can take 45 minutes of your time and dedicate to God, and without having like you want to go to church.
Yeah.
You want to receive the Lord. You want to receive the host, right?
Yeah, but
if you can't.
Yeah, I think there's also, we will make a distinction there too. There's a difference between fulfilling my obligation and receiving the Eucharist. So let's be clear about that. When we talk about, what does it mean to fulfill my obligation on Sunday? That doesn't necessarily mean receive the Eucharist.
Well, correct, but that's why I go. Sure.
I mean, but the point is that you're there to witness the actual sacrifice of Christ, right? And maybe there might be circumstances where you can't receive the Eucharist, or you shouldn't. Well, you still can make a spiritual communion. That's good. But the point of going to Mass is not to receive the Eucharist. The point of the Mass is being a witness to Jesus' sacrifice, his passion, death, resurrection, and ascension, right? We become present in the Mass of those moments. So I want to make a distinction there, because people tend to think that, well, in order to go to Mass, I need to receive the Eucharist. But also to that same point, I think there are people that say, well, I'm on vacation. I'm taking vacation for my faith too. And these may be people who go to Mass every Sunday, and then, hey, when I go on vacation, I'm just going to, I don't know. Is that being too loose? I don't know. Right. Ultimately, that's a matter of conscience. I think for me, that would be. I would, for me, would be. I think my conscience would let me be like, yeah, you're good. You're on vacation, whatever. But also, I hope that my conscience is well formed. Not everyone's is. So I can't judge someone else. I can just judge what I do, right? And my conscience tells me whether it's wrong or not.
Also, it helps if you enjoy Mass.
It does. I think it does. I mean, if you have that desire, and that sometimes too can maybe be a mitigating factor too. Like, Father, I know I love going to Mass, and it really is kind of eating me up the fact that I couldn't find a place to go. Yeah. Good. Then you're exempt. I mean, you're fine. If someone were to bring up confession, I would say, I don't know if that's a sin, because you had the desire, you even tried. Okay.
You made the attempt, you had the desire.
Yeah. Right. I mean, I think people should confess it. I mean, as far as like, getting off their chest if they feel that burden. But also too, I think in general that wouldn't maybe not even be a sin, because the effort you gave was sufficient, and you still have that desire. So good. If we're other around, I didn't really care, nor did I have the desire to go anyway. And really, I kind of looked at this as an opportunity not to go. Well, all right, that might be a little different, right? I mean, so maybe we need to talk about that a little deeper, So yeah, it kind of depends. It kind of depends.
Yeah. You ready for another question?
Let's go. Yeah.
Okay. Altar rail, no altar rail. Is there a rule where you have to be a baptized Catholic to be on the altar?
No.
Might that be only during while the Mass is being?
Okay, good.
This is a long time ago. I heard some. So
yeah, no, that's good. All right, so let's take a step back and see. Okay, what is the purpose of the sanctuary? So the purpose of the sanctuary, the space where above the step, where the altar is, where that is, we believe as Catholics that's where heaven and earth meet. That the sanctuary is the closest we get on this side of earth to heaven.
So if your heart is thumping,
right? So the question then the question gets even deeper. That like when we talk about like the sanctuary is part of heaven. Who is allowed to be in heaven? Well, we believe as Catholics that baptized people are the ones that are allowed in heaven. Now, we also would say there are three types of baptism. There's sacramental baptism, where water's put over one's head, and the words, I baptize you in the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, are said, with the intention to do so, yes. There's baptism by blood. So even if not baptized and I actually give my life for the faith, we would believe that, just like many of the early martyrs who were not fully baptized, catechumens, even recently, we had a story in Syria a few years ago, this is 20 years ago,
yes,
where there was a non-baptized person with a bunch of Orthodox Christians that end up giving his life for the faith. He said, well, if these men believe what they believe and they're willing to give up their life, I'm surely want to follow in their footsteps. And he did. We trust that person's in heaven, even though they weren't sacramentally baptized. And then there's baptism by desire. And so when we talk about that type of baptism, that's a little more ethereal. We can't necessarily say this is the moment when it happens, because it usually happens the moment of someone's death. And only Jesus is the one that really gives that grace in that special way, provided that person, we would say, is striving to do good in their life and follow their conscience. Even if they've never heard of Jesus or didn't fully understand Jesus, or even didn't believe in God or fully understand God, provided they're trying to do good in their life, we trust that there's an implicit desire for the good that comes from baptism, and Christ would provide that at the moment of a person's death, in which case they would be in heaven. Now, because that happens after someone's death, I can't judge that. And even though someone maybe really wants to be baptized and isn't, well, we have that kind of dividing line when it comes to the sanctuary. And so for the longest time, and even today it still applies, the only ones allowed, so to speak, and that's kind of we don't want that term, but maybe the only ones that maybe should be, or maybe the only ones that would have the privilege to be would be those that are baptized, because the sanctuary is also a place of ministry. Who are ministers? Only baptized people are ministers. So when it comes to like even these things like lectors, servers, extraordinary ministers, especially extraordinary ministers, they should be baptized, and not necessarily baptized Catholic. Now, extraordinary ministers baptized Catholic and also receive. I mean, they should receive the Eucharist, but these other ministries, we have kids in the school that are not baptized Catholic, but they can still are allowed to minister because they're baptized. That's a policy we have, right? But at least should be baptized. Because again, we're understanding we lose that symbolism and that kind of meaning if just anyone can go in the sanctuary. Because of the holiness, the holy ground that's there. One then should maybe desire and foster that desire to be baptized if they want to actually be in that space. So there's not necessarily, I would say, an explicit rule, but it makes sense from reason that those that should be in this should have the privilege of being or the right, maybe let's say the right to be in the sanctuary should be baptized people, right?
Makes sense.
Yeah, I think it does, and I know there's some people that might disagree with that, but to me that's a good reason. And there can be reasons, like people are saying, well, it's not inclusive. Well, the church is not inclusive. There are things we have to do to be part of this church. Mm-hmm. And we shouldn't necessarily look at those not obligations to do, but desire to do them, a want to do them, because Jesus gives us these gifts to us. And we should use those gifts for what the purpose of them are, right? So, I mean, in the same way, I wouldn't expect to go to a synagogue or to a mosque and then expect to be invited up to minister in those places either. So why shouldn't we, right? So I think the arguments that are made against it are not necessarily the best arguments. I can understand them, but I don't think they're the best arguments. And if we're looking at what the tradition of the church holds, well, traditionally, the only ones that even were allowed in the sanctuary were baptized people.
Because of...
Well, I mean, take a step further. It used to be you wouldn't even allow in the sanctuary unless you were a minister in the liturgy. And who were the ministers of liturgy? Well, clerics.
Clerics,
right? Yeah, it was you weren't in the sanctuary unless you were a cleric. So, again, that's kind of the aspect. I think we actually loosened that up a little bit, especially after Vatican II, which is not bad. I think that's not a bad thing. But I think there has to also be expectations. There needs to be standards. And that seems like that's a very reasonable one to do.
It seems simple to me, but I was born and diapers were changed in church. Like, we always respected that altar. Yeah. And you didn't just go running up there unless in fact, you didn't go up there. I didn't go up there as a child, although baptized. I didn't go on there or up there.
Yeah. I mean, and the same way, John, when I was growing up, unless you were like a server, I would say though, when we were kids, we were like, I don't know if we're like too young, maybe second, third grade. That's when we started ministering, like doing lecturing, that kind of stuff. But unless you were one of those people, you weren't up there at all.
Yeah.
You weren't up there. Yeah.
Up there, you don't get up there.
That's right. That's right.
Neat. Okay. Are we almost done? Because I got a funny question for you now.
Well, no, does anyone have any online? We got two people watching, I guess. I don't know. There's nobody in the meeting room, so I'll go and close that up. But okay. Seriously, I love your questions. So go ahead. Yeah,
okay, so and I thought about this at Mass today, and it just made me giggle. Like, when you're a little person and you're running around church, you're not supposed to drink holy water. It's not for drinking; it's for blessing. And right?
Yeah.
Right. Little boys, and this may be a little boy thing.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
But I'm watching you today, and you're consecrating the host, and you're blessing the water, and then I'm thinking you're drinking the holy water. Did you ever think about just?
Well, okay. No, hold on. Now, are you okay? Are you talking about you're talking the water that's mixed in with the wine and the chalice? That's not holy water.
Considered holy water? Okay.
No.
So that was my question.
No. Yeah. Okay. So what John's referring to is
I told you it was a giggle.
during the offertory, we bring up the gifts, right? So what happens is the priest says a blessing over the bread. And these go back to the Jewish roots, right, of worship, especially in the Passover rites. Takes the bread, blesses the bread, and gives thanks to God for the bread. Then the priest, not many people see this, but they pour wine and a little drop of water into the chalice, right? Representing the divinity and the actual the humanity of Jesus, but also the water and blood that flowed out of the sides. There's many different reasons, but also represents the church, right, in that way too. But the practical purpose of that is that back in the day, wine was very strong, and so they would mix it with water to kind of cut it down, right? So we kind of maintain that practical tradition, but also the theological traditions behind that. That water is that's drinking water. I mean, we would not, we don't. I don't bless that water, and then we go out and use it. Now, to be fair though, I mean, the water that we use in the holy water fonts are also drinkable water, but not all the time. I mean, so like the question may raise, like, how often do you actually like change out the water? How often do you actually clean that font? It doesn't happen often. Like, it's not like an everyday occurrence.
Right. So
especially if, let's say, we have a lot of the people change things out on Thursday. So if it was a Wednesday morning, I probably wouldn't drink out of it. Right. It's probably not the best thing to be written up. That was like a Thursday afternoon. Yeah, maybe you're all right. Maybe we're okay. But Wednesday, there's a lot of people that touch that water and put their hands in it and stuff. So would not want to necessarily, consume that. But the water we use in the altar, that is
potable
water.
Yeah,
exactly. Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Now you're right though. It doesn't have to be potable water to be used for holy water. It could be any water, even like salt water, right? So in that regard, yeah, you probably wouldn't drink that either. No. But yeah, in general, it's kind of thought it's not so much the purity of the water; it's the fact that there's been a lot of people touching it. There's a lot of people, germs, bacteria. It's probably not good to drink it.
The holy water.
Right. Would it be a sin to do that? No. But it may not be a practical thing to do.
Right.
For your own health. Yeah. So
for all the little boys watching that run around church and moms.
Right.
Okay.
So yeah. Good. What are the other questions?
That's it for me.
All right.
No, there's a lot.
No, that's good. That's good. That works. That's good.
That's a good one.
Well, wonderful. Unless there's anything online, just announcement. So next week, of course, we have Friends, Food, and Faith. So it's actually the feast day of St. John Vianney, which is an interesting day. So I'm still trying to decide if there's any suggestions about maybe what to talk about next week. I'm open. We could do a lot. There's the Assumption. There's a lot of Marian feast days in August. We have a lot of actual feast days in general. We have like St. Lawrence. We got the Transfiguration. We've got even the Feast of St. Louis. So St. Louis's feast day, our patronal feast day, which is Solemnity. Actually, hold on, I got to check that again. So St. Louis is an interesting day because on August 25th, it used to be within the city boundary of St. Louis, it was a solemnity. And everywhere else it was a feast. So when I was a priest at St. Gabriel in the city, every August 25th, we would actually celebrate a solemnity, meaning we had the Gloria, we had the Creed, all that good stuff, the second reading. I want to say though, last year, was it on Sunday? I don't know. It tends to rotate. So I don't know if I've actually celebrated here yet. What often we do too in the Archdiocese, we usually transfer it. So what'll happen is a lot of parishes will transfer the Feast of St. Louis to the Sunday, and use the readings for that particular Sunday, but the prayers would be for St. Louis. We also did that on our patronal feast day this last weekend. So this last weekend we had the Solemnity of St. Anne in Yoakum, which fell on a Sunday. So by law, we can celebrate that day as a solemnity with the prayers for Yoakum and Anne, but the readings, unless we get special permission from the Archbishop, would be for the day. So we use the 17th Sunday of Ordinary Time readings with the prayers. The same thing would apply for St. Louis, unless the Archbishop gives special permission to use the actual readings for St. Louis. But even that needs to be kind of a good reason to do that. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, we can talk about the liturgical canon law aspects. Maybe that might be a good discussion. Otherwise, if you want to have any suggestions, let me know ahead of time, and I'll discern it. And we'll have Friends, Food, and Faith next Tuesday. All right. Okay, guys. Everyone have a good night. We'll see you next week. Thanks for coming, John. Appreciate it.